and welcome to the first live webinar under the Be Unstoppable web series webinar by HP. Now, Be Unstoppable is an initiative that we have been running for a year to help celebrate the spirit of entrepreneurship and help Indian SMEs and startups deal with their challenges so that they can be unstoppable in their business growth. Now, everything was running smoothly with only routine issues and challenges until now, when the current pandemic has actually shaken everything and turned the entire business ecosystem on its head. It has presented us with a whole new set of challenges and opportunities, whether it is related to workforce management, finance, supply chain, use of digital channels, so on and so forth. How do you deal with the situation? How do you use it to your advantage? That's why this topic for today's webinar, from survival to revival, turning business challenges into meaningful change. And to talk to you about all this, we have with us a very, very special guest speaker with us today, Mr. Manoj Kohli, who is the country head, SoftBank India. Now, Mr. Kohli is a passionate leader who truly loves the challenge of shaping industry transformations. He is responsible for supporting SoftBank's Vision Fund that has over 20 portfolio companies in India. Some of the prominent companies in this group include Ola, Uber, Snapdeal, Paytm, Policybazaar, and Lenskart, just to name a few. He works very closely with these companies to enable their business to run smoothly and achieve their full potential. Mr. Kohli was previously Executive Chairman, SB Energy, and Managing Director and CEO, Bharti Airtel, where he handled operations across Asia and Africa in 20 minutes, 20 countries till now, till 2015, I'm sorry. Now, before I hand it over to Mr. Kohli, I would just like to announce that all the attendees can post their questions via the chat window, and Mr. Kohli will address them after his talk. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Kohli. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anil, and thank you, Pradeep. I'm so delighted to be with all friends and colleagues. Thank you to give me an opportunity to address all the young leaders. Be unstoppable is a fantastic theme because that's a theme India needs. That's a theme we need at this stage of coronavirus to come back with strength and passion. And I think survive we will do. I think the first 2 months has proven that India has comparatively done better than others. So we have not fully survived. The coronavirus will continue for some more time, but at least how India as a country and a government has responded to now turn the business challenge into revival, into a meaningful change, into a takeoff to something better, something superior. And that is the theme of today. Today, the biggest issue is the uncertainty. How long will this situation last? When will the vaccine come in? How much suffering has the world to go through yet? And I feel as soon as the vaccine comes, let's say vaccine may come in 6 months, 9 months, depending on how fast, and because there are multiple countries, multiple labs who are working on it, sure, immediately the vaccine will lead to major recovery across the world. In the meantime, I'm proposing, and the many good leaders who are also saying the same, that we should take advantage of this crisis. We should convert the threat into an opportunity. We cannot waste this crisis. It's a great opportunity to reset the society, reset the businesses, reset to a new meaning and a new purpose. And very frankly, this advantage we have to reset from a situation which was kind of status quo for many, many years. Let me first talk about some global shifts. And I will prioritize 4, 5 shifts which impact India in a positive or negative way. First shift I've seen, and you must have all read about oil prices coming down from 60 or even more than 60 to now $20, a hugely positive impact on India. And this is the time India has to not only save precious foreign exchange, but also go for new renewable energy as well as electric vehicles, which are crucial for India.
Manoj, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, but your network bandwidth, I think there is some issue which is coming in. It seems to be a bit low. Hello?
I'm just enhancing it further.
Right.
Is it better now?
Yeah, so...
Should be much better.
Yeah, okay.
Is the voice quality okay?
Yeah, voice quality is perfect, but we were getting the video was sort of coming a bit blurry.
Okay, fine. So the second issue I wanted to share with you is the issue of how China is being addressed by the world, and how will India get a positive upside of this situation. It's very clear that the world wants the supply chain not to be focused on one country. World wants a +1 or +2 beyond China, and India is very important market which has a domestic market also. So the +1 or +2 will happen with India leading the charge, with manufacturing coming into India. And I believe that if we are so good in automotive components, then why shouldn't we be very good in all manufacturing? And we can be. I think what Gurgaon has proven, Pune, Chennai, all these auto areas of India, they can do much more than auto. So this is another big opportunity for India. The third is digital opportunity. It's very clear that now the online businesses, the digital businesses will grow faster. And luckily, India now has digital 4G infrastructure in 500,000 or more villages of the total of 600,000 villages. All towns, villages. Yes, the quality will improve further. Spectrum and bandwidth will improve further. But overall, we have the infrastructure to grow. And already, many startups, many companies are utilizing that 4G, 3G infrastructure. Other thing is, with globalization moving back a bit, India will benefit because a lot of international companies, American companies, Japanese, European, Korean, will come to India for the domestic market, not only for exports. Yes, if India cost is lower, you can export from India. But first is the big domestic market of India, which is very important to cater to. And finally, I think this opportunity is there for India to move the large-scale unorganized economy to become an organized economy. Today, 90% of the economy is unorganized, which is not good for India because the workmen are daily wages, etc., businesses are very small. But as we steadily move into an organized economy in the next decade, I think India will become bigger, stronger, and more stable. So these are the 4 or 5 global shifts which will benefit India, and I think all of us should be ready for it. Now, in the interim time of next 6 months or so, companies are behaving in a way that they have to conserve cash, which is absolutely right. At this situation, you have to conserve cash because cash is important. Also, you have to eliminate wastages and costs which are avoidable and approach business with frugality, because frugality is important at this time. Any waste which we were doing in our companies in the last 5 to 10 years should be eliminated in a systematic fashion. But on people front, we have to be empathetic, we have to be hopeful, and we have to be optimistic with our people so that we deal with people in a very sensitive way. And in these interim period, I'm sure many companies are already planning new products, new market entries, etc., so that as soon as the situation is normal, they can take advantage of new products and markets. So that is more of an interim plan, which I think in 6 months, I'm sure many companies in India will go towards. But let me now talk about long-term shifts. What are the long-term shifts our companies can have? First and most important is digitization. Is my business digital or not? Have I initiated digitization of the business in the last 5 years or not? If we have initiated, that's great. We already have a headway. We can move with great speed. If a company has not initiated, I'm sorry, it is already late. We should do it immediately. Because if companies don't digitize themselves to move with speed and good quality, they'll be left behind by companies who are already digitized. And based on that, many companies will adopt new business models. Business models which are equally offline and online, which is very important because the business model of yesterday may not be relevant to business model of tomorrow. And therefore, model needs to be changed, needs to be more profitable than past, needs to involve digitization fully. And that model has to be created and shaped now. Now is the time. Third thing which companies will go for are creation of new products for new consumer behavior. Because clearly the consumer behavior will change. A small town like Haldwani or Kozhikode, Guwahati, Coimbatore, Kasaragod, many small towns around the country will have housewives shopping on websites. There'll be online shopping in small towns. People who are not highly educated, even those colleagues, those citizens will shop and utilize the internet network for their day-to-day life, much more than ever in the past. So this change in consumer behavior has to lead to a lot of new products. Because I feel that our earlier products were more offline, physical products. And therefore, this change is important by the companies. Also, going into new markets, maybe companies are not covering all the towns, all the villages. Companies are not exporting to other big markets outside India. So this is the time to make a step-by-step plan to make new markets to be covered by us. The next change, which is also very important, is a new performance culture, so that the company comes out of the digital era much stronger than earlier. The speed of the company, the decision-making of the company, the execution process of the company, all these processes have to be far faster and more data-based and more factual and more democratic, so that everyone is involved in the good decision. I believe that this performance culture will be at the core of the big change of tomorrow. Another change which many companies are already thinking is new branding, rebranding of the company, how the brand is presented to the consumers, rebranding inside the company, outside the company, so that the brand reflects the new ethos of the company, the new way of working of the company, the online or digital way of working of the company, which it was not there yesterday. So these are, I will say, 5 or 6 major long-term shifts which have to be created by the company now. And the entire leadership team has to be fully involved into that, so that leadership team is committed to that strategy, new strategy, committed to the new business model, and makes it successful at any cost. Overall, I see that this is a big leadership test for all leaders, not only political leaders of various countries, but also for business leaders of many companies, whether the companies are large or small. First and foremost, leaders have to take a tough call of survival. Because today, I can say there are businesses which have a survival situation. And luckily, the government He's opening up the economy quite rapidly in green zones and maybe orange zones in the month of May. And then gradually in June, I'm sure economy will open up in a systematic way. But still, many companies are suffering a lot. Therefore, some tough calls have to be made. Leaders have to make those calls very prudently. And leaders have to, I'll just like to reinforce this issue on people. Leaders have to be very sensitive to people, very empathetic to people. People are long-term assets. People are not short-term assets like furniture, like other movable assets. People are long-term talent assets. They will make the company much bigger and stronger tomorrow. So please be very sensitive to people. Give them hope. Give them optimism. I'm sure tomorrow will be far better than today. I'm sure May will be better than April. I'm sure June will be better than May. I'm sure July will be better than June. Every month we go into will be better than last month. And therefore, build the team with a lot of strength, confidence, and hope. This is the time to build a solid team, because under such constraint, under such emergency situation, teams work very well together. So I believe that this is the time for leaders to eliminate obsolete ways of thinking. The old way of thinking, the traditional way of thinking, which are slow, which assume low competition, which assume low consumer awareness. Today, competition will be high, consumer awareness will be high, and therefore, some of the old trained incapacities in leadership have to be eliminated now. Because if you don't do it, then we'll continue to behave in a traditional fashion, but in a new era, which is not possible. Therefore, there's some characteristics of a leader I would like to share with you. Number one, and most important, agility. Speed is the mantra of tomorrow. And leaders who are agile will do very well. Second is flexibility and adaptability. Leaders who are flexible, as the environment changes, they also change, and they get the business to change also, they get the business model to change also, they will do very well. Also, leaders who are humble and authentic. We cannot afford leaders who are arrogant, who don't listen to others. Leaders who listen to others, humble, who are authentic, who are real, and those leaders who even share their vulnerabilities with others, so that they know that they're real, they're human beings also. Finally, leaders who are courageous, who take tough calls with their team, and they execute tough calls with great amount of passion. One more thing I want to share here is the self-management of leaders. How do they manage themselves? How do they manage their physicality, which is fitness? How do they manage their own mind and spirit and attitude? How do they manage themselves? I think that is very important test of a leader. If they self-manage better, self-manage their physical fitness and mental stage, how the spirit is kept positive, the glass is always half full, then those leaders will do much better than the past. So I believe that these are the leadership tests which every leader has to pass. Many leaders may pass it, some leaders may not pass it, but the jury is out. Next 6 to 12 months are important leadership testing ground. So at the end, I just want to conclude by saying that companies and leaders and even countries will be unstoppable if they think fresh and deliver more. It is very important to think fresh for delivering more results, more output, and a better output than past. I am confident that many companies in India will take leadership position, will shed the past, and will adopt a lot of new habits, new ways of working, new business models, new digitization, and many, many modern technology-oriented habits which will make the company be future-proof and make the company a leader in the future. So that's broadly what I wanted to share. I'll now request Pradeep to come in.
Thank you very much, Manoj. That was indeed fantastic. The various things that you talked about. I heard, and by the way, I just want to mention that so far I have already received something like 35 questions. Okay, so therefore, I think the audience really does want a lot of different kind of things to be answered. So I will perhaps ask you just 3 or 4 questions, and then after that, I'll take up the audience questions for you. I heard, very good words in one of the crises. I don't remember which one, but it said that never let a good crisis go to waste. Okay. And you are also saying that this crisis is going to throw up new opportunities. But a whole lot of companies are struggling with, working capital issues, are struggling with that. How do I manage tomorrow? And therefore, how do they re-engineer themselves? How do they make themselves COVID resistant, as it were? What would be your mantra for that?
This will pass. If you think that this will continue forever, it's wrong. This situation of last 5 weeks or 6 weeks is a very temporary situation. Okay, yes, so it'll have some side. Sorry,
you're looking at a V kind of a recovery. That are we already at the bottom? You said that May will be better than June, and May will be better than April, and June will be better than May, and so on. So, are you looking at it as a V-shaped kind of a recovery?
Very difficult. Some of these theories are very difficult, but I can say that this last 5 weeks was a very unique period in the history of the world. But next 5 weeks will be far better. Why I'm saying that? Globally, economies are opening up. Globally, governments are realizing, including India, that we cannot keep economies closed for too long. Step by step, the green zones will be opened up. Step by step, orange zones will be opened up. Yes, the norms of social distancing will continue. However, we cannot have such long lockdown which will harm the Indian economy in a big way. Already government is very, very sensitive to this. Many industry leaders today, you must have read what Mr. Narayana Murthy said. He's saying exactly the same thing. So I believe that recovery will happen. Because we are a consumption-led economy, India's recovery will be faster than many, many other countries. There are many countries like China who are export-led economies. Their recovery will take a bit longer because the guys who have to import from that country have to first give orders of imports. In India, it's not like that. India will come back faster. Today, I'll give you one example. The agriculture sector. And if you read the case study of Punjab of harvesting in the last 2 weeks, fantastic case study. A record harvest, record food grains are coming into FCI godowns, despite social distancing issues, which means India will rise to the occasion. India has capability to rise. The road transport is opening up. Gradually, you will see railway will open up, airlines will slowly open up, yes, with social distancing norms. To become absolutely normal may take 6 months, 8 months, I don't know. But month after month, week after week, you will see revival. And Indian consumption has to come back.
Sure. You talked about conserving cash, and you also talked about that this is the time that we need to have empathy, as far as the employees are concerned. How does one manage a mix of both of this, mind and heart together? And, you've always been a person who's looked at ancient Indian wisdom. So is there something in our ancient wisdom which directs us as to how we should be managing both these things?
This is a very good question, but a tough one. I believe both can be done. We as the leaders have to be smart to do both. They have to eliminate wasteful expenditure. That's what I said. For example, I'll give you examples. There's a 2-hour meeting in London. 3-4 executives go to London, attend a 2-hour meeting, spend 2 days, airline cost, hotel cost, dinners and lunches, etc., etc. If you add up all the cost, there's so much wastage. If you do a 2-hour video conference, it is 1% of the cost, maybe less than 1% of the cost. And you do your job in that 2 hours. After 2 hours, you do whatever else you want to do. Your productivity is much better. So I'm saying there are hundreds of such bad habits which companies have built where there's a wastage of resources and it doesn't reach to the productivity which you want to reach to. It doesn't reach to the cost efficiency which you want to do. By the same time, when I come to people, I would like to say very clearly that leaders have to be very sensitive to needs of the people. People are long-term assets. The talent will take the company far ahead. And I am not talking of poor performing people. I'm sorry to say, if there are people who perform poorly, and that will be a small percentage, 2%, 3%. I'm not talking of that because they are not contributing to the future success of the company as the other 97%, 98% are doing. So the good performers have to be retained, have to be nurtured. There is a company, and I don't want to take a name, where they have given a voluntary salary reduction. And for example, I know one employee of that company who has voluntarily reduced salary by 30% for 5 months or 6 months. And the company has been so gracious that the company has given that employee and all employees double of their salary reduction as ESOPs whenever the company lists, which means companies are also very sensitive. And that's the right thing to do. A good performing manager or employee, you will never get back. So please be very sensitive, provide hope, provide optimism, and provide great future to the team. Pradeep, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Sorry, just switching on I was in the meantime just looking at the questions and, sort of doing the parallel homework that I'm required to do so that I can ask the audience questions to you. How is SoftBank applying some of these things to its portfolio companies in terms of, you've always been digital, you are ahead of the brick and mortar companies. So how are these principles being applied by your companies?
I think we are applying these principles very spontaneously because our companies, if you look at our more than 20 companies in India, they're all digital, they're all AI led, they're all startups, they're all modern technology oriented culture. So we really do it for the living. And luckily we don't have a baggage of the past. So therefore SoftBank companies are already in this era of future. And that's why in future, such businesses will do better and grow faster.
Manoj, you were also, before you took up the leadership role at SoftBank, you were also for one of its companies, which was SB Energy, you were the chairman of that. Now, talk to me a bit about the energy sector. We are seeing, are we seeing a permanent shift away from oil-based economies? Are we seeing I mean, the weather is clearing up, so, AQIs are much better and so on. Are we seeing a new dawn of energy? This has given us a wake-up call, or will we go back to work as usual and, our gas guzzlers will be out on the roads and, we'll be back to where we were in terms of consumption of energy?
Pradeep, the train has left the station. You can't stop this train now. Now, the fossil has to be, in a systematic way, phased out. And when I say fossil, I talk about coal, I talk about oil, which represent fossil. And it will be phased out. And it is already being phased out in some countries faster, some countries a bit slower. But I think the speed will only go up in the years to come. India is taking a leadership position. The renewable energy targets of India are highest in the world, maybe second only to China. There's a target of 450 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030 and about 200 plus gigawatt by 22. Already India has done close to 70 gigawatt, which means it's moving. It's making progress. Maybe it could be faster, but it's making progress. The second revolution, which is also linked to this, is the automotive revolution towards electric vehicles. Because it's very clear that electric vehicles are the future. And petrol, diesel, etc., the usage will start coming down quite steadily in the coming years. Now, if you add up these two revolutions of power sector going from fossil to renewable energy, and of auto sector going from IC engine to EVs, and if you combine them, because both will be consuming electricity, both will be consuming power. So if you combine both of them, this will be the single biggest industrial transformation globally in the next 2 decades. Single biggest, because two sectors are involved, and those two sectors of power and automotive are the biggest sectors of the world. And both are, fortunately for us, moving towards renewable energy, towards energy which has no pollution, and that our children deserve to have that. Our plants deserve to have that. Our animals deserve to have that. They deserve it. I think they need a good life in future. We cannot force a highly polluted life to our children, our plants, our animals in future. So you will see this. This train has left.
You also talked about manufacturing shifting from China. Will we get this on a platter? Or, we actually, once again, greed and low cost and more efficient production facilities and all of that will take over, and the public has short memories, so people will all forget about it and continue investing in China. Is there a permanent shift? And what is it that we as a country need to do to ensure that we grab this opportunity?
I think it will be a permanent shift, because globalization will take a bit of a back step. And every country, if it is a large country, then it will like to manufacture majority of the products in the country for the domestic consumption. And smaller countries, of course, may like to import because the economies of scale are not there. But I'm very clear that India, with its very large domestic consumption, can be a large manufacturing giant. And this is the right opportunity for India to grab this opportunity. Right time. And two things we have to do, just two things. Number one, for every sector, there has to be a very high quality incentive scheme, which luckily government has already announced for electronics and medical equipments in the last 1 month. And I really compliment the government that they have initiated this incentive scheme. And I understand more incentive schemes, sector by sector, like textiles, etc., are coming. So one is that, so that any company which goes to China or comes to India or goes to Vietnam or goes to Malaysia, they get a very attractive incentive scheme to come to India. Number two is that at the ground in state governments, in the states where the actual manufacturing will be established, they should get a red carpet, which means that they should get support in terms of land acquisition, in terms of power at the right quality and the right rate, in terms of local logistics locally, as well as the logistics to the port of ports. So I'm saying these are few very important expectations of the investors or the manufacturing companies from India, from central government, as well as from state governments. And finally, I think CEOs of American companies in India or Japanese companies in India will have to also help the new CEOs of new companies to help them in understanding Indian market, understanding Indian way of working, so they settle down faster. So this is what I have also suggested to government, and government is working very hard. And I'm confident that more and more manufacturing investment will come to India in next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. So, now I'm going to start taking the audience questions. There are a number of questions that are around the startup ecosystem. And people want to know that, is there some way in which SoftBank and its companies provide a fillip to the startup ecosystem, because they are under tremendous pressure right now, most of the startups?
Our companies fortunately are well funded for at least 12 months, if not more. Maybe some are funded up to 1.5 to 2 years. So our companies, my advice to our companies is to support them in terms of getting cost efficiency, getting productivity, making new growth plans, making new products to come back into the market more strongly than past. And luckily, all of them are doing that. And clearly, if they do that, they will actually, maybe they'll recover the lost ground much faster. And I feel that should be the mantra across all startups. There are startups who may have some cash issues, so they'll have to resolve those issues with their investors. There are startups who will have some other kind of business model issues or government approval issues, so they'll have to resolve them. But in our case, in SoftBank case, we are resolving issues every day.
Okay. Number of questions which are to do with the supply chain, the current delivery related problems, logistics and so on, that even if I manufacture, how do I take my products from place A to B? A whole lot of questions that are coming up with the supply chain. Do you see permanent shifts taking place in the supply chain going ahead in the future?
Yeah, supply chain is disturbed temporarily. Let me assure everyone, there are problems of roadways which have been overcome now. Now the national highways are working. People are moving goods across the country. Essentials are moving with greater speed. Non-essentials are still not moving as much, but as soon as those are allowed, they'll also move. Good trains are moving, but more and more efficiency will come in times to come. Now, the red zones are the only zones where there could be a supply chain issue because of restrictions. And that restriction may remain for maybe 2-3 months or whatever, depending on when they turn orange and when they turn green. So my only thing is that from next month onwards, red zones could have restrictions and where supply chain will be impacted. Other zones will be okay. Now, some people are also in our companies are also noticing some issues like all their workmen required are not there. Many workmen have gone back to their villages. That will also change because workmen are starting to come back. And in the month of May, after the harvesting is over, you will see more workmen will come back. Then some people are saying that, okay, supplies from some factories in the red zones is very low, is 30%, 40% this month in April. So those supplies will also pick up. May not pick up to 100% in the month of May or June, but pick up very well because government is eager to open up these plants with social distancing norms. And I think if the companies follow those norms, government will be happy to support them to open up fully. So the point I'm making is a very systematic, orderly opening up is taking place. And all these supply chain constraints will go away step by step. They will not go away suddenly. They will go away step by step. We just need some degree of patience so that it happens.
So there are again a number of questions regarding the government support to SME. That what kind of schemes can there be from the government, what kind of SME support, easy financing, working capital help, government as a market, and so on. Your views on this issue?
Yes, government has already announced, and even RBI has announced 3-4 packages. And I'm sure government will announce some more packages in coming few weeks. The biggest hit has been the daily wager and small businesses. And these are the two segments of the society which need support from government as well as from industry. We cannot have government to be responsible for everything. I think industry should also help. For example, if daily wages are there, we should support them. Many companies are supporting daily wager with wages as well as with food. Small businesses who are linked to large industries should also need some help, will also need some help. And there are good companies helping them. So I'm saying both government and industry have to support small businesses and daily wages. So that in next, I'll say 90 days or 120 days, there is a normalization in these segments also.
Okay, so you're saying that it is not just the government which needs to do that, but it is the government as well as the large corporates which need to step up to the plate at this time and help businesses and help the daily wage earners and so on in terms of trying to revive the economy in terms of doing more spending, right?
Absolutely, because large companies have, for example, 1,000 vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Many companies have 2,000 vendors. So those vendors, those suppliers have to be safeguarded and supported by the large companies in these rainy days. I think our partnerships are meant for rainy days. So these partnerships are tested for rainy days. And this is a rainy day. So let's go out to help them. So that when the companies need more from these small businesses, they will also do more. They will also stand tall to do more for the company.
You talked about that, as far as smaller towns are concerned, they will also be doing digital purchases and so on. So a question is that, does that mean that the Kirana stores, the next door shop which is there, is that kind of business going to come under pressure?
I don't think so, because frankly, firstly, the digital dexterity has to be achieved. And that fortunately is slowly picking up, which means digital behavior.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, there is today a very, very small percentage of the total national consumption which is going online. So we should not look at it as a threat. We should look at it as an opportunity. If there is a 5%, 7% GDP growth, then all those goods will also grow in a natural way. And if some percentage of that, let's say 5%, 10%, goes towards digital, then there's no degrowth for anyone. Actually, everyone is growing. Mm-hmm. So I believe Kirana stores, the mom and pop shops also have a future. And there are some customers who are more comfortable with that kind of purchasing.
Right.
where they can go and talk, where they can go and spend time, personally see, personally touch the products. In every country there are customers like that. So I believe it'll be an issue of coexistence.
Right. So there are a number of questions which are around different kind of sectors. And, the common theme there is that is such and such sector going to sort of revive quickly, or is it going to take a long time, and so on. So perhaps, I can just read out a few sectors, and you could give me your take on, that is the short term or mid term or long term. What is the kind of revival you see there? Let's start with manufacturing.
It's a very short-term impact. Manufacturing will come back very fast, just like agriculture, because FMCG is required. Many goods which are manufactured are required genuinely by the consumers in India, except for if manufacturing unit is in red zone, that may take a few weeks extra, but otherwise it will come back.
Right. What about tourism and hospitality, luxury goods?
Luxury goods will take time. That I agree, but I feel the government will support growth of airlines, growth of hospitality, growth of tourism. It needs a lot of government support. I feel that there are many ways to do it. Many companies are thinking creatively to do it, how to do it faster. The global tourism will also take time to recover. It will not recover very fast.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, please.
Yeah, I was saying education.
Very fast. Now, whether it's online or offline, but education will be very fast, because I know the parents of this country. The parents are very, very committed to educating their children, and I don't think they will waste any time. Colleges and schools, I've already talked to many of them. They're opening. All of them during the last 5 weeks have all been online classrooms. I've understood from parents that their children have never been more serious than in the last 5 weeks.
Okay. What about financial markets?
Will open much faster. Definitely faster. I don't think banks are already open. They are doing all the services. Stock market is open. Financial markets will open faster, because this is the time government and RBI also want the financial markets to open, provide liquidity to the economy.
Okay. There's an interesting question which says that whenever we are rethinking strategy, it is the gravity of the existing business that always sort of pulls down businessmen and taking very harsh decisions. So is it now being forced on us? Should we start thinking of our business from scratch?
Absolutely. That's what I said, that you have to think de novo, think fresh. Because if you become very defensive on your existing business, then you will face some problem.
Okay.
Many companies face issue of transition where they need to, a competitor is cannibalizing your business. It is better that I cannibalize my business rather than my competitor cannibalizing my business. I do it in a new way. Yes, there may be a short-term impact, but in the long term, the company will be far stronger and far better.
Would you say
courage is required? Courage is required. A bold approach is required in the short period.
Would you say this is a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, it's an opportunity God has given us, so that we can rethink and reset our businesses.
Wonderful. Okay, IT and ITES business. What do you think are happening with those businesses?
These businesses, IT will be very strong, because digitization process across the world as well as India will be much stronger now. Many companies who are not showing interest in new packages, softwares available will show much better interest.
What about-
ITES,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I was going to say, what about ITES? Yeah.
ITES clearly is something which will also grow. Some countries may try to have BPO set up in their own respective countries. Yes, there may be that trend also, but not a huge trend, let me tell you. Because the cost efficiency of India and even a few countries like Philippines is very, very big.
Mhm.
And that cost efficiency and quality of English is a big strength.
Okay. So one interesting question is that, is this the time for underground infrastructure assets like optical fibers and gas pipelines and stuff like that?
Yes, telecom infrastructure, digital infrastructure will be very good for future. Absolutely.
Healthcare. I think I already know the answer, but I should ask you the question.
Healthcare is underinvested, unfortunately. It's very clear. It's proving across many countries of the world that it's underinvested. The infrastructure is not great. It's not complete. We need to do more. What I loved about last few weeks was telemedicine is now picking up very well. I mean, if you are 100 kilometers away, you don't have to reach the doctor physically. A doctor can test you, talk to you, diagnose you on telemedicine platforms. And I think so healthcare, I feel, will also undergo a major transformation like education sector. So each of these sectors actually are heading for big transformations.
Okay.
And the companies who are in these sectors
Right.
have to, my advice to them, they have to shed their trained incapacities. Every company, every business has a trained incapacity
Mhm.
that this is the only way this business can be run.
Right.
Whereas that is not true. That is not the only way. There are many other ways the business can be run.
Mhm.
And this is the time to shed our trained incapacities and think fresh and invent a new business model.
Okay. I have a question that, you have worked with a large number of unicorns, in your own portfolio, there are lots of unicorns. Do you see some common elements in those unicorns?
3-4 common elements. Number one, the basic idea of satisfying a need of a consumer. That basic idea has to be a sound idea. Let's take Lenskart as a business. It provides specs, contacts, and powered sunglasses to consumers. So the basic idea has to be sound. Number two, the business model has to be so well crafted and shaped that it should reach to the consumer in a good quality way with speed, so that consumer is satisfied. The business delivery model similarly also has to be robust so that the entire supply chain process is well established and is safe.
Mhm.
So this is around the business model and the consumer. Then comes the brand. The brand has to be endearing. The brand has to be close to the heart of consumers, so that consumers prefer that brand over other brands. And last but not the least, the culture, the performance culture, the people culture of the company has to be very open and flexible, has to be inspiring, has to be empowered. So these are few aspects which are common across all portfolio companies.
And it should have SoftBank.
No. SoftBank cannot be everywhere, but there are many companies, many startups which have other investors, and they're also doing very well.
Right. So, a question around is marketing going to be different in the post-COVID era with more of business promotion around digital marketing and so on?
Absolutely. The marketing, the branding through print and through television will in a systematic way decline. And the digital marketing, the digital media will increase significantly.
Okay, coming back to the earlier sectoral questions, what about co-working space demand?
I think co-working space will be preferred by many companies because it offers flexibility for people. It offers flexibility for cost. It gives good quality infrastructure, and it takes away all the headaches of having an independent office, having an independent cafeteria, having an independent everything. There are a lot of common services which are good. So I feel as a concept, it will be better in future.
But will work from home and so on further drive a nail into real estate's coffin?
No, work from home definitely will grow, no doubt on that. But employees who have to be physically in office could be in shared offices rather than independent offices. Let's say if I have 50 employees today, and tomorrow, next year, I want to have 75 or 100 employees. That flexibility, that I'll have 5 more employees a month, and how will they be accommodated? And maybe a month, the 5 more employees don't come. So that flexibility of the cost, variability, it's variable to the induction of employees. So that only shared offices can offer.
Right. I think, Anil, I would just like to check with you, how much more time do we have, or are we actually coming to an end of the allotted time to us?
Anil is on mute.
Yes, Anil needs to switch himself on to. So then I shall continue for some more time.
We are, PG, reaching the end of the time, but yes, I think we can continue for a few more minutes. So please, PG, go ahead and ask your questions.
Okay. So, some startups have asked this question that if we have no revenue right now, how do we continue to take care of payroll?
That's a very tough question. Revenue will come. From the month of May, revenue will come. So it's not a long-term issue. It's an issue of 1 or 2 months. Revenue will come. But because of that 1 or 2 months, please don't let good quality talent go away. Because to get back the good quality talent will be very difficult.
So in your opinion, do employees, you talked about that people have taken voluntary cuts and stuff like that. Do employees understand all these things and are willing to look at alternate solutions rather than immediate gratification?
Absolutely. Employees are very sensitive and empathetic. They will do voluntary cuts themselves. If you motivate them and say that this is a short-term period, there's an issue of 6 months, 9 months, whatever the period is, please contribute, please sacrifice a bit, and we will come back to you. We'll give it back to you in some way. Maybe next year, maybe over the next 3 years. Because employees want to work for a good company, want to work for a good brand, but they want to feel that they are cared. There's a feeling of being cared for. If that feeling is there, employees will be very loyal.
Okay. Is there a different mantra for SMEs which are in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Or is it the same mantra for them?
No, SMEs have to be far more frugal. But luckily, because SMEs are small, their connect with the employees is also very, very good, very close. In a large company which has 1,000 employees, 2,000, connect with each employee is not that good. Or maybe good in some companies, but in many companies it's not. But in small SMEs, it's very good. I think they take care of the genuine needs of the employees in a very personal way.
Okay, one question is that will SoftBank, what will its investment strategies be? Or is it going to take a pause, or is it going to continue to invest in new startups and new ideas?
So recently, Rajiv Misra, who's the CEO of SoftBank Vision Fund, made a statement just 2 days back. You must be reading it, Economic Times, that will continue to invest. Our investment focus is clearly on businesses led by AI, artificial intelligence. And so he's made a statement just 2 days back. I think I'll request viewers to go through his statement.
So with that, Manoj, I still have lots of questions that are there in that entire panel. You know, in the chat panel that I have in front of me, lots of questions, but I think, you know, we are running out of time. What we will do is that we will combine these questions, you know, we'll compile it, send them to you, and perhaps, you know, we have the email IDs and mobile numbers of the people who have asked these questions, so we can get them back subsequently with answers if you have the time to subsequently answer some of these queries. So, Mr. Kohli, you know, on behalf of Cyber Media Research, it's indeed a pleasure that I would like to sort of thank you for this wonderful and, you know, straight from the heart and a very honest webinar on, you know, how we can be unbeatable. It's really been fantastic for me to listen to you and see you, you know, handle, I think, at least about 20, 30 questions. So, you know, that's really phenomenal. Anil, over to you. You may have some concluding words.
Yes, thank you, PG, and thank you, Mr. Kohli. Yes, as you rightly said, it was a really wonderful interaction indeed, and the insights were very, very useful. I'm sure the attendees were really enlightened because we have been, you know, bombarded with questions. PG, you said 30, 35 questions. It's a lot more than that actually, which I've been just trying to put together and send them to you so that we can have the discussion going. So yes, there's a lot of questions coming in from the audience, and we must figure out a way of getting those answered. I would like to thank both of you for this wonderful interaction. I would also like to thank HP for making this possible. And lastly, a very big thank you to all the attendees for sparing your valuable time to, you know, join us today. I hope you found this session useful. With that, we come to the end of the session, and a request to the audience before you, when you leave, please do a log out rather than closing the browser window, because when you do that, you will get a feedback form that will automatically pop up, and would appreciate if you could fill that up and share your feedback about how you found the session and tell us what more we could do in our future webinars. Thank you so much. Thank you, PG. Thank you, Mr. Kohli. It was indeed a wonderful interaction.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Pradeep, and thank you to all friends. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.